This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Samoch Zayin, all learning for the month. The month of Tevis, as we wrap up the month of Tevis, has been generously sponsored by a close friend of the Daf as a Schos Alias Neshama for Yaleib ben Yaakov, B'siyata Deshemaya. The learning of the entire Chabura should bring Aryeh ben Yaakov to a higher and higher place in Gan Eden Shel Ma'ilom. We're holding at the bottom of Samoch Zayin Amid Beis. And we're at 5 lines from the bottom in which we quote the Mishnah. It says, if one Ganev steals from another, there's no payment of kefil. Begins the Gemara with a statement of Rav. Omar Rav says, Rav lo yishanu. This is din that in a Ganev, if one person steals from another, there's no potential kefil payment. Says Rav lo yishanu elo Lifnei Yiyosh. It's only if you steal it from the Ganef before there was Yiyosh by the original owner. Avalachar Yiyosh Kanoi Ganef Rishon. After Yiyosh, the first Ganef is Kainet. And therefore, when you steal it from him, the Ganef Sheni is akin to stealing it from the original Bailim. And therefore, Mishalim Tashlume Kefel to whom? Leganef Rishon. Because he is considered the Bailim now. That is the din of Rav. Comes on Rav Sheshis and asks, Amar Rav Sheshis, Amina, one of the more drastic statements, Kinayim v'shachav Rav, Amar l'hashmaitza. Rav said this then when he was sleeping, when he was dozing off. Why? Because it's keneged a braisa. Te'etanya Amar Rav Akiva b'nei Amar Teira Tavachu Machar B'Shalim Tashlumei Dalad V'Hei. What is the reason? For Tvicho Mechira you pay 4 or 5 Mibnei. The reason why Dalad V'Hei is paid, we've been learning about Dalad V'Hei since the beginning of the parak, and finally, the Gemara keys us in that what is the reason for the payment of Dalad V'Hei? Says the Gemara, because this person is nishtarish, sharashim. He has roots v'chait, roots in sin, meaning he stole. That's one Avera. But now he takes that which he stole and he sold it. He slaughtered it. That's a much deeper level, and therefore he has to pay $1 v'hei. But says the Braisa Emas, when was it sold? If you're going to tell me that it was sold before Yosh, Mikash Nishtarish, that's not considered to be Nishtarish b'chet. Why? Because it's being sold before there was Yosh of the Bailim. Ella, says the Gemara, what must it be referring to? It must be referring to la'achar Yosh. And therefore, what's the kasha? Says the Gemara, V'sal gadai toch Yosh kani. And if you're going to tell me that there's a kinyan that happens via the Yosh of the Bailim, the problem is, amai mishalem. So now what is the reason why there's going to be a payment of tashlumei? Amai mishalem tashlumei dalad v'hei shelo yuteveach shelo yumaycher. All he's doing is selling or slaughtering his own thing, meaning, says the Gemara, the whole yesod of dalad v'hei is why? Is because you went too far. You stole something, fine. But now you go and you take that which you stole, and you sell it, you slaughter it, that's too far, so there's a payment of dalad v'hei. But if it becomes yours via the Yosh, what did you do so far? You sold or you slaughtered your own item. Answers the Gemara, defending the opinion of Rav Amri, 4 lines down, Samachas of Aleph, Kedamai Rav Mimnei Shana Bechet, Tachanami Mimnei Shana Bechet. Explains the Gemara a slightly different nikudah. It's not necessarily, says the Gemara, that it's nishtarish b'chet, that you went too far. It's that you repeated the chet, repeating the chet by going and slaughtering or selling that which you stole. That is where the din of dalad v'hei comes from. Continues the Gemara, Tashema, with another kasha on Rav. Rav stemming from the fact that Yosh alone will make a kinyan by the ganef. Says the pasuk, Utvacha yomacher matvicha sheina chayzeres av mechira sheina chayzeres. It must be that when someone sells something, it's only in a mannerism, sheina chayzeres, that it's not going to go back. So Emas, Says the Gemara, when is there a sale? When is there a machira? I apologize. Where did our Gemara go? There we go. Emas, Elim, if you're going to tell me Lifnei Yosh, Amayina Chazeres. What's the reason it doesn't go back? When there's a Amayina Chazeres, what's the reason? Explains Rashi. What's the kasha? The kasha is that there was he never owned it. So why is it in a chazaris? He'll go back when it's found out that he stole it. He'll have to return it. Ella, says the Gemara, la'achar yosh. Must be referring to la'achar yosh. But if you're going to tell me that there's a kinyan with yosh, so answers the Gemara in a similar vein, 2 lines from the white lines. Nachmin. Parat. This comes to exclude l'shehikna l'shloishim yoim, a sale that's going to go back within 30 days. Yachanami prat l'knehishna shloishim yoim, a sale for 30 days. So we take a quick moment and we look at Rashi. And Rashi explains, what does this mean? Prat l'shehikna shloishim yoim koloimar. And of course, we know anytime Rashi says koloimar, Rashi is telling you that this might not be the simplest way of reading the Gemara. Kelaimar, Lo'ilam Levnei Yish, really it's prior to Yish. V'hai Eino Chazares, and what does it mean? It does not revert. Dikatani, Lo'ilimut Echa Dolayahanu Ma'isav. It's not going to say where your actions don't help. Tavagav Dolayahanu, Chayvi Rachmana. Why are you Chayv? Hayol V'shana B'chet. Elo Limu'utei. Hecha Dolay Machar Ganov Lilokeach. Elalasais ba melacha shloishim yoim dehu kishekiros be'alma. Kishkiros be'alma. So therefore, what's Rashi explaining? Rashi's explaining that in reality, Daled Vehei is when the animal is sold or slaughtered prior to Yush. When the Brisa says it's only for a Mechira she'enei chayzeres, how do we translate those words? Doesn't mean a Mechira that's going to end up going back. No. Rather, it's talking about, it's discussing a case of a sale that would go back after 30 days, where you didn't sell the animal, but rather you made a tenai to work for 30 days and then return it. Such a case is called the do kischiros ba'alma schiros. Excuse me, I keep pronouncing the word wrong. I knew something sounded wrong. Kischiros ba'alma. It's only a manner of renting. If you sell something for 30 days with a tonight to go back, says the Gemara, that's essentially a schiros, and that is the reason. That's what the price is referring to by a machira shechazares or inoy chazares. Continues the Gemara with another kasha on the first wide line. Meisvei. Says the Rice, if someone steals it and someone else steals it from him, the first guy pays kefil, the second guy pays karen. Harisha, and then Misham Dalad Vehei, because he sold it. Like every ganav. Ganav v'tovach ubachar v'ganvai. You stole it and then you slaughtered it, and then someone else comes along. And they steal it from you. Then Harisha and Mishalim. I apologize, a little bit of a cold. Harisha and Mishalim tashlumei dalad vehi. V'asheni and Mishalim tashlumei kefel. Ella, what do you pay? Karen bilvad. So says the Gemara, Katani Miha. What do we learn over here? Mitziyasa. Katani Miha Mitziyasa. We learn over here a middle case. So far, we're just quoting a brisa. Now we're going to get to the point that we're looking for. Ganavu machar bachar veganvai. Harisha mishan tesumi dalavei v'sheni mishan tesumi kef. Amos. When is this middle case? Excuse me, it's the case that we quoted, but we're zoning back in, almost like an Amar Mahar. Amos. If it's talking about Livnei Yosh. Why is the second guy paying kefil? Shini Rishos, below Yosh. It's Shini Rishos, it's caging possessions, but there was no Yish of the Bailim, and therefore, Mikal Mandar the Kani. Elab Shita, what must be going on? Lachar Yish. There was Yish. So what's the kasha? So my Mashanta Shlumi Dalad Ve'ei. Dideyu Dezamin. It's that which he sold, his own item. Basically, almost identical to the same kasha that we keep on asking, just proving it from different prices, as we see over here, that clearly it's not considered Didei, it's not considered that it is his own, because he's paying Dalad Ve'ei. Visu, and furthermore, the Katani Reisha, Ganav Wachar, Veganva, Yarisha, Mishanta Shlume Kefel, the first guy, Vasheni, who stole it from him, Mishanta Elikarim. Milchti, lachar yish kaiminon. If it's lachar yish, v'isa gadaitach, so the same kasha, if you can tell me that yish is kaina, so Hasheni, amayna mishalim el karen. The second guy stole it from whom? The first ganif. But there was yish. So the first ganif made a kinyan. So the second guy is ostensibly stealing it from the bailim. So therefore, what? There should be a regular payment of kefel el karen. Elalav shmamina yish loikani. So rather, says the Gemara, you must have to say that Yish Loikani, V'kash L'Rav, and after all said and done, it's Shver to Rav. Oh my Rava, so Rava answers in Rav's defense, says Rava V'tizbra, do you really think, do you really think that this Brisa is mitaretzta? Do you think that this Brisa is an accurate Brisa? What's the question? Excuse me, we're not moving. Let's get there. It is. Ella. Tikatani Seifa. The Seifa said what? Ganov v'tavach uba'acher. V'ganvoi. Rishim sham teshlumi dalav v'hei v'shenin m'shalom b'la keren. And the second guy only pays keren. What's the question? Oh, Miguel Mandamar Shini Maisalakani. In the Seifa, what's the case? The case is that there was an actual act done. Shini Maisa, everyone else is a Kenyan. Eloilam, what do you have to say? Kula lifne yosh. Ve'epoch Seifa lemitziyasa. And we have to change the Seifa with the mitziyo, mitziyasa l'Seifa ve'ema hachi. So because the Gemara proves that there's clearly a problem with this Brisa, says the Gemara, we have to make a bit of an edit to the Brisa. And explains the Gemara. And why? Because that's the case of only Shini Rishos below Yosh, and therefore there's no Kinyan. But in the Seif of Ganav v'Tavach v'Achav v'Gan v'Arishain will indeed Mesham Teshlumi Dal V'Hei v'Hasheni will indeed Mesham Teshlumi Kevel. Why? The Kiniya of Shini Yimai says there is a Kinyan with Shinu Yimai. That's how Rava reinterprets, re-edits the Brisa to fit according to Rav. Papa Amar Lailam says Rav Papa. No, I'll tell you a different way of learning the Brisa. Says Rav Papa. La'ilam lo'itebach, don't switch anything in the Brisa. Seifa beishamayit. Amar shina yibim kaima aimir, as we have seen. But therefore, 1 second, if the Seifa is beishamay achi kasha reisha mitziyasa al-rav, Amar azeh la'ilam kulaf nehi yoshachma eskina shedisiyaishu abailim beloikeach v'lo nisiyaishu beganav. They only were nisiyaishu, one of the case, tavle yosh, and therefore, v'lo itema mishadavina shino yosh shini rishos. Really. Gabi Ganav. Eladol Mishkachas Tisashlume Tarvayu Ganav Rishon V'Ganav Sheni Ela Behacha. That's the only way that we're going to have a scenario. The Bryce is talking about a case in which there was Yosh after it came to the first Ganav's possession, because you can't find such a case of paying multiple kefels aside for in such a scenario. Continues the Gemara, we're at the 2 dots, about 10 lines to the bottom of Samachesam and Aleph, and the Gemara quotes a case in which we're going to see about the payment of Talid Vahei Itmar Amoicher Lifnei Yosh. Rav Nachman Amar Chayiv, Rav Shishas Amar Potter. A machlaikas. Is there Daled Vehei in a scenario in which one sells the animal before the year? Rav Nachman Amar Chayiv, Umachroi Amar Achmana. Vazavin. Loishna Levnei Yush, Loishna Lacha Yush. What's the difference? Rav Shishas Amar Potter, Chiyuva Lacha Yush, Hudani Maisav. Only if it's la'achar yesh. Lefnei yesh lo ani ma'isa. Before yesh doesn't change anything that what you did, because you need both shinei ma'isa. You need both the item changing and yesh. Loi mechayiv domya detvicha be'inon dahanu ma'isa. Amar Rav Sheshes. Says Rav Sheshes, what a beautiful din. But what is the source for this din? Amar Rav Sheshes, I know this from the Tanya of Kiva. Mibnei Amra Taira. Why did the Torah say Tavach Machar Mishal Shlomid Aleph Hey? As we started off today's shir. And when is that? Emas, when is it nishtarish? When is there that you're sunken, you're rooted in Aveira? Ilim levnei yush, mika nishtarish. If it's before yush, what's the nishtarish? Elam, lav lacher yushu. Must be that it's after yush. Amar Rava, I'm sorry, we just got a little, there we go, the glare, little bit of glare. I don't know what's going on here. Amar Rava, dachi yeshu. Amar Rava, meishe shana bechit, as we learned before, and therefore there's no raya. Continues the Gemara, Tashema. Let's bring a raya to Rav Nachman. Again, we're in the middle of a machlekes. Rav Nachman that says chayev u'machrem rachmana v'zavin. Rav Shisha says potter in the case of moicher lifnei yush. So Tashema says the Gemara. Let's bring a raya to Rav Nachman v'tavchay u'macher. Ma tvicha shein chazeres af mechira. Shein af mechira. Shein chazeres. Ema. So when is this case? Again, in every scenario, really, you can play out the Gemara by trying to figure out when are these cases happening, pre or post Yush? And with that, you can figure out what the story is. So Emas, Ilim Livnei Yush Amai, in a Chazaris, because it was never Yush yet. So of course you have to return the stolen item. Tergama, Rav Nachman, no Raya, Prala Shehekna, Loy L'Shleishem Yoim. As we answered before, it's a case of schiros because you only sold it for 30 days. And the last line of the Samachesam and Aleph comments the Gemara that Rav Elazar Rav Elazar as well concurred that the Chiyav is for Dalet Vehei is only when there is Yush. Why? The Amar Rav Elazar teaches Rav Elazar as we turn over to Samachesam and Beis. Teida, I'll bring you a raya that there's only payment of Dalet Vehei if it is after there was Yush of the original Bailim. What is the raya? Because when we talk about Geneva, Stam Geneva is Yush Bailim. Why? Because says the Torah, you pay Dalal Vehei. Now, how do you know? V'dilma Dalal Vehei. V'dilma lo yayish. Why are you paying? Maybe there was no Yush, so the original Mechira is not valid. Elalah misham na'amri stam Geneva. Rather, what must be the reason is because we say, excuse me, Allah, what must be the reason? Misham na'amri non. Stam Geneva Yush Bailim he. Says Gemara, 1 second. V'delma, how do you know? Maybe Tavagav Lo Yayish. Amri Lo Salga Daitach. Why? Because again, Dumya de Tvicha Ma Tvicha Dahanu Maisav Af Mechira Dahanu Maisav. But ask Gemara further, Vilafnei Miyosh Mayahanu Maisav. If it's before Yush, what does it help? V'delma de Shaminu de Yayish. Maybe the case he's talking about, says Gemara, in which we heard that he's Miyayish. Amri los like a daitach chesdomia de tvicha ma tvicha laalter av mechira laalter. So the Gemara proving that both the tvicha and the mechira have to both be comparable and similar cases to each other. And this is the shita of Rav Elazar, as the Gemara is saying that similar to what we just said, that the chiyuv is only going to be la'achar yush, like the opinion of Rav Nachman. Rav Elazar holds the same. Says the Gemara, Omar Le Rav Yochanan, about 12 lines down. First one line is the altar. Omar Le Rav Yochanan, Geneva. Omar Le Rav Yochanan. So again, Rav Elazar just taught us that he holds like Rav Nachman, that it's only going to be a payment of Dalet Vehei if it's la'achar yush. I'm sorry, I just kicked him. There we go. It's only going to be if it's la'achar yush. And why? Because he learned from the word of umachrai that it must be after Yush, therefore, that's when there's going to be the payment of Dalet Vehei. Omar Alei Rav Yochanan, about 12 lines down, the first one line is La'alter. Says Rav Yochanan, Geneva B'nefesh Toichiach. Let the case of Geneva B'nefesh, what does that mean? Stealing a nefesh, in kidnapping in English. Let the case of kidnapping prove to you that it's not only when there is Yush, She'ein Yush Bailam, because there's no such case of Yush Bailam in the case of kidnapping, and yet there's an obligation for selling the person that you kidnapped. So says the Rav Yochanan, therefore there's no raya from Elazar from the word of Machra in the Torah. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Mechlal, this of Rav Yochanan lefnei Yush chayiv. If you're going to tell me Rav Yochanan lefnei Yush chayiv la'achar Yush mai, what is going to be the story la'achar Yush? Rav Yochanan Amar, no, even la'achar Yush will be chayiv. And Rish Lakish Amar, no, la'achar Yush, you're going to be potter. Explains the Gemara, what is this machlekes Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish? Rav Yochanan Amar chayiv, why? Because chiyuvai bein lefnei Yush bein la'achar Yush. Rav Yochanan says, very simple. There's always an obligation of kefil, whether there is yush or not. Reish Lakish Amar Potter comes along. Reish Lakish, he says, no, achar yush you're Potter. Why? Because chiyuva is only lifnei yush. You have achar yush. Once there's yush, is kana v'shalayu tavech v'shalayu moicher. Like all the kashas of the Gemara that we kept saying, maybe if it's ready yush and shalayu tavech v'shalayu moicher, it's exactly what Reish Lakish holds. So now that we have a clear machlokes Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish, says the Gemara, Isvei Rav Yochanan the Reish Lakish. So Rav Yochanan asks on Reish Lakish, you Reish Lakish hold that there's only a chiyuv of kefel if it's lifnei yush, but la'achar yush you're kind and therefore there's no kefel. Isvei Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish Ganov v'hektish. Says the Bryce, if one stole and then he was makdish it, or excuse me, Ganav v'hektish v'achar kach tovach, and then he slaughtered it. So what is this case of this Bryce? Amos. It's actually a Mishnah. Amos. Ilim lifnei yush mi kadosh. If it's before Yush, is there any sanctity onto the item? Ishki aktish is beisay kadosh amarachmana. And from there we learn how Dma beisay shelayav kol shlai only be maktish something that's yours, and therefore there'll be no hektish that's chal at all. Elab shita lachar Yush. It must be that what are we referring to? We're referring to that there was a Yush, the owner already despaired. But what can we deduce and infer from the words of this Bryce of a time of the Hektishu? Only because he was makdish, that's why the Einai Meshalim Tashlumi Dalad Vei, the Chika Tavach the Hektish, Katavach, because when you're Tavech, it's from Hektish, Avoloi Hektish. But if you are not makdish, Tavei, Avoloi Hektish, Tavach, then Mishalim Tashlumi Dalad Vei. And here's the punchline. Rav Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, you Reish Lakish hold that Yesh Kain, and there's only payment of kefel before Yesh, but not after. Amai mishalem shalayu tevech shalayu moicher, it's his own. So really a long and lengthy brayso, but a very direct question. And we conclude with Reish Lakish's response, Amar le'achom ha'yaskinin kon shekdishai bailim biyad ganov. That the owner was makdishit when already was in the hands of the ganov. Says Mar, what? To me, Kaddish does not work. From Rav Yochanan Gazal. If so installed, let us say Shabayim Shnei Menichol Na'akdish. Both Vizeh, the ganov Lefi Sheinu Shaloi, because the owner was not miyayish. Vizeh, and the owner Lefi Sheinu Bereshusai. So how can you tell me that the case is that the owner was makdish it after it was stolen? Amri hu da'amar kitznuin. You know what's going on over here? Reish Lakish holds like the sinuin that what? The tanan. Hatzinuin, the discreet ones, Menichanes Hamois, Vaimrim Kol Milkot Mizeh, Yemachulal al Hamois Ha'il. Whoever takes these money should be machulal on these coins. And that's the reason why Reish Lakish holds specifically in this case is going to work. And we're going to pick up from over here. Let's just look at one Rashi. Rashi says, Kol Masha Laktu B'nei Adam Hayoy Mikan Yemachulal. That whatever will be taken will be machulal. And Rashi explains the Chiddush is Al Ma'afal Gav. The last saber shusayu, that's the chiddush of the sinuim, and that's what the Gemara is saying. Reish Lakish holds mifrak v'tafes ulamais b'kedusha. Still has the kedusha. We'll stop over here. I'll pick it up as we'll continue the theme of the questions on Reish Lakish v'siyata dishmaya.